She is the Reader's Digest European of the Year, one of Time magazine's 100 most influential people in the world, the author of the best-selling and much-quoted tomes Infidel and Caged Virgin. Ayaan Hirsi Ali, welcome.
Thank you.
The security that had to take place before you would speak here, there was a police inspection, sniffer dogs, quite unusual for me. Now an everyday part of your world, do you become immune to the weirdness of it all? Is it now, do you even notice these days that curtailment?
You never get used to it. You never become immune to it. It fascinates people who are not in it more. It irritates those of us who are in it. But then you have to keep up because, well, the alternative is not appealing either.
You were already in the Dutch Parliament before the tragic events that led to you needing this sort of security. Why did you enter the Dutch Parliament? What was your message? What was your goal?
I was invited into Parliament by the chairman of the Liberal Party, which I think, I don't know how you say that in Australia, but in the United States, Liberal is considered to be conservative.
As it is in Australia.
Okay. And I was asked to do that because I had written a few articles on the position of Muslim women in the Netherlands. I had indicated that we had to look at social and cultural variables to see why, to examine why Muslims were not assimilating into Dutch society, and in fact some of them were rejecting it. And it was that Liberal Party that said these things need to be said in Parliament and measures need to be taken.
Some people argue that there is such a disjointedness between modern-day Islamic society and modern Europe that these two things can never come together. In a liberal, traditionally non-Muslim European nation, you can't have a significant Muslim community. Do you agree with that analysis?
I don't agree with that. I approach it from a different perspective. I think that we should really separate individuals from the creed itself. I think it's possible to be a Muslim and as an individual to make choices, as all individuals make choices every day. And there are many law-abiding Muslims. There are many Muslims who appreciate democracy and who understand what the freedoms are that they don't have in their countries of origin. Islam as a creed, as a philosophy, is incompatible with the basic tenets of, the arc of liberal democracy and of the ideas of the Enlightenment. It's a prescription for how society should be furnished. There are believers and unbelievers. Men and women must be treated separately. There is only divine law, and human beings cannot make their own laws. All of this is opposed to everything, every principle of liberal democracy.
In particular, you believe that the requirements that Islam place on women do not sit in modern liberal societies. What is it specifically about Islam's relationship with women that most troubles you?
Well, the woman is reduced to a slave. She must always have a male guardian. She can never sign papers. She never is never recognized as a self-reliant adult. She is subjected by her husband and her father, all her male guardians. If they want her to obey them indefinitely, they have permission from Allah in the Quran. She has no choice in shaping her own destiny. The Muslim woman, first of all, she's married off to usually someone she doesn't want.
As was going to happen to you.
And that can be from the age that she menstruates, which for some girls is 9 years old. It's just, I can go on. And that, again, is the creed. And I want to emphasize over and over again, it's not every Muslim woman who is treated in that way. But from the perspective of what the Quran tells us, and in following the example of the Prophet Muhammad, the position of a woman is a terrible one.
Well, I'm speaking with Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who is speaking at the Centre for Independent Studies Big Ideas Forum in Sydney. Many people criticise conservative Christian societies as also treating homosexuals poorly, treating women poorly, having very backward opinions on contraception, the role of women in marriage, etc. Is it a fair criticism, and is that really the way that any fundamental religion treats women, or is there something inherently different in the way that Islam treats women?
Well, I think it's a matter of scale and it's a matter of time. I think Christian society, 500-600 years ago, when there were witch burnings, women were not allowed to have and determine their own future as they saw fit. And so those comparisons in different times are justified and sometimes similar and sometimes different. But in the case of Islam, nothing has changed because nothing in the creed has changed. There's not been a reformation. Islam hasn't gone through a process of enlightenment. 36% of Muslims living in Britain today feel that if one leaves Islam, in Britain, not in Saudi Arabia, living in Britain, if one leaves Islam, one must be killed. So, I mean, Islam is just really, really right now very different from Judaism, from Christianity, from Buddhism, Hinduism, all the other religions.
We've spoken about the precautions you have to take in your life because of the threats that have been made against your life, and yet you're quoted as saying, as a 20-year-old student at an Islamic girls' school in Nairobi, when you heard of Salman Rushdie's work, your instinctive reaction was, he must die. How do you reflect upon that part of your life now, given your experience today?
I reflect on it by acknowledging that before that age, before I came to the Netherlands, in fact, before I went to university, I never learned to criticize or review the moral framework that my parents and my Quran teacher and everybody around me gave me. We knew the difference between right and wrong, and Salman Rushdie did something wrong, and we all knew for anybody who behaved and expressed himself in the way that Salman Rushdie did, he had to be sentenced to death, and so Khomeini did the right thing. At 20, that's what I thought. Just a few years later, after I had learned to review these ideas, I think differently, and I think there lies my optimism for Muslims, and that's why I keep on separating Islam from Muslims.
You say the word optimism. In closing, let me ask you, do you live in fear or do you live in hope?
I live in hope. I live in hope, and I mean, as far as fear is concerned, it's a practical fear, knowing there's a practical threat. I find it chilling and horrifying to learn such a poll that 36% of British Muslims feel that apostates should die. I realize that not all of them are going to act on it, but just the idea itself is frightening.
You're an amazing woman. It has been fascinating speaking to you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.